You are listening to the Marketing 32 Show with your host, Brett Allen.
Hi, Brett Allen here, host of the Marketing 32 Show, where I connect with leading dentists, dental influencers, and industry experts to uncover the latest strategies, insights, innovations to help your practice grow and thrive. This episode is brought to you always by our team here at Marketing 32. We are the only dental marketing team that I know of that is truly based on performance and value that we deliver. So if you're not growing, you don't pay us. It's really that simple. We're truly invested in your growth. If you need help with growth and marketing, check out Marketing 32. Schedule time for us to have a conversation. We'll set you straight if we can fit together to work together and help you grow. Quick shout out to Olivia Smith. Recently had her on the show. We talked all about her process. She is a dental coach, consultant, helping practices to grow through leadership and systems, all of that. If you are in the market for a dental coach, check that episode out. And also you should pay attention to this episode because I've got another inspiring dentist and entrepreneur on the show today. Super excited to welcome Dr. Rehan Shahid. He is a practicing dentist, entrepreneur, and co-CEO of a multi-location dental group, generating over $7 million in annual revenue. He ultimately helps dentists buy back their time and scale their practice through coaching practice owners on transitioning from operator to CEO by building leadership, systems, and accountability that drive profitability without burnout. I love that. Through Practice Success Academy, he works with dentists and practice owners to buy back their time while scaling sustainable team-led businesses. Rehan, welcome to the show. Excited to have you.
Yeah, thanks, Brett. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, this will be great. A fun conversation. I always love talking to the entrepreneurial-minded dentist, the visionary dentist. I know that's who you are. And I love it that you're giving back to the industry and working closely one-on-one with dentists to help them. So super excited to have you on the show. Looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, likewise. It's good to be able to give back in some way to the profession and see it rise over time too.
Yeah, and we need that. I mean, there's a lot of coaches, consultants out there. And like you said before the show when we were talking, not many of them have the clinical, like the dental experience. And so you definitely bring that. And I'm excited to dig into your story and your group practice that you've built and how you've done that and share that with everybody. So why don't we start off there? Like, tell us that story? How did you get into dentistry and how did you ultimately grow to a group practice? Walk us through that journey.
Yeah. So I'm a COVID grad, meaning for those that don't know, I graduated during COVID.
Oh, wow.
2 months after graduating, everything was closed. It was horrible. I took advantage of that time and I bought a practice. And then 2 months later from that time, I bought another practice. So, new grad buying 2 practices within 4 months of graduating. I had to learn pretty quickly how do you actually survive and thrive in business. I got lucky to where, unfortunately, COVID happened. But the good part of that came was all the free time I had because everything was closed. So I use that time to read books. I use that time to listen to podcasts, stuff like this that you're doing, Brett, listening to podcasts that help drive people forward. And I just got to really educate myself on, hey, how do I actually buy a practice? And I knew from day one of dental school, I'm the business guy. I just happen to be the dentist, but I'm known as a business guy. I'm not extremely clinical. I'm the entrepreneur that loves business that happens to do that through dentistry. When I bought the practices, I learned over time what all the mistakes I could have made, and I made all of them. And there's some I still even make today, but I got to learn so much so quick because I had to. And you graduate dental school and you don't know anything on the business side of stuff. You barely know enough to survive, being a clinical dentist. So through all the lessons I've learned from just doing that, I got to gain the experience to be able to just start operating. And I think that's what really helped me drive faster was my ambition to say, hey, I'm going to be a multi-practice owner from day one. But I knew I got to hurry up and get my reps of experience in so I can make the mistakes, get the lessons, and move fast. And that was my goal. Hey, I know I'm going to have to make mistakes to learn. Let me just go to make them as fast as I can so I can pass that rep and then go forward.
Yeah, I love that.
That got me into that multi-practice ownership. And then we bought more practices after that. A 3-year goal I have is to get to 25. So we'll see how that goes.
Wow.
And then just, in doing that, I started realizing I enjoyed just talking to people and I enjoyed networking. And the more dentists I got to meet that were struggling on buying their first practice, or they had bought it, but they didn't know how to operate it, I was like, dude, I've done that. I've made every mistake. Here's one piece of advice I'll give you. Here's a second one. And over time, people just started asking me all these questions. And I thought, you know what? I'm actually really enjoying giving back to these people. And that's where my coaching platform started to arise from there.
That's so awesome. So you graduated 2021, is that what you said?
2020. Yeah.
2020. Yeah,
Yeah.
middle of COVID, right, 2020. So in a short 5 to 6 years, you've now built a group practice. How many offices again?
We're at 4 offices right now.
Or
We just
okay.
expanded even recently. So now, and I say 7 million, now we're probably close to 8 million with all of our
Yeah,
expansion. Did.
that's incredible. So, and these are all through M&A acquisitions, right?
Yeah.
Or
It's,
are they all startup?
acquisitions, and then you could say one of them's like a skeleton startup. It's a startup that we just pretty much bought that was very empty. Um,
Okay.
and from that, we're still all 100% owned, no private equity.
Awesome. Yeah. And I know there's a growing movement of, especially with the Alliance of Independent Dentists, love that group. There's a growing movement of like, how do we prevent private equity and DSOs from coming in and taking over the industry and messing everything up? But
Yeah.
so I love that you're doing it as privately owned. Walk us through that journey a little bit more. So you graduate, were you an associate somewhere, or did you just immediately go into?
So because when I graduated during COVID, I didn't have a chance to be an associate because everything was closed. So
Okay.
my
Oh,
first day on
okay.
the job
Yeah.
was me being an owner.
Wow. Wow. So you jumped right into it. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So jumped right
Mm,
in, and with COVID happening, we weren't equipped with a lot of the dental skills either graduating.
mm,
So, it was
uh-huh.
just, doing dentistry, learning, and then trying to watch YouTube videos and really self-educating,
Yeah.
finding mentors that were dentists and saying, "Hey, can I shadow you?" Even though I'm already a dentist,
Yeah.
because I didn't get to learn my whole year practically
Hmm.
that we got chipped off on.
Yeah. So a startup is its own unique beast, especially as a new dentist right out of dental school. We don't typically work with startup practices. We like to work with practices that are in momentum, have a team, have a patient experience dialed in, have marketing budget that's, where we can just pour gas on the fire, right? I know there's other marketing companies out there that do work with startups, but it's a different beast. And so there's a lot that you got to learn, and there's a lot that you have to build in order for marketing to really help. And so I'd love to pick your brain more on like, so how did you grow that first practice? When did you know you wanted a second one? What were challenges you faced along the way when you were doing that?
Yeah. So for the first practice, how did we market was really just community marketing. At that point, I didn't know how to market, right? Like I said, you don't get taught that in dental school. There's not a
Yeah,
market
no,
class.
no.
So it was just going out in the community. And we had balloons of the shape of a tooth, and we would stand with them and say, "Hey, we're the dentist here." Right. We went from like ground marketing to being in every single event. And my goal was just one thing. Hey, I want to be so ridiculously famous in my town to where everyone can't help but know about me. And that was the goal, right?
Yes.
Just be so famous that people can't help but know about you. And
Right.
in that, I dominated the community at that point. And then I started learning, well, Facebook is a thing for marketing, right?
Mm,
Google is a thing for marketing. And then I got to pay ads and do all the other
yep.
stuff that people typically do. But my biggest return was that drive of, hey, the goal is being so well known in your community, and Facebook and Google and everything else is an avenue of that.
Yeah, yeah, that's kind of fuel on the fire. When we work with practices and we do ads to target specific kind of patients, um, it's an expensive way to acquire patients if you're not doing it right. Even if you optimize the ad account and get those costs per click down, cost per call down, you're still paying per call. I'm curious with ground marketing and community events, community outreach, connecting, being everywhere, like you said. Tell us more about how you did that, because that's always fascinated me since we're mostly online. All of our team and everything that we do is about building online presence, online community, connecting in
Right.
Facebook groups, ads, all of that, website reviews. But when you're on the ground, building relationships in the community events, that kind of thing, what did you find worked best? Did you have somebody that kind of ran that and managed it for you, or was that you? And yeah, tell us
That was
more.
all. I mean, it was all me. If I wanted to be so well known, I had to show my face out there. And
Mm,
when we did things that would propel it forward. So, for example, during the holiday season of Christmas time, I went to every single business in my community, like maybe 25 businesses, and I gave them Christmas cookies with a personalized letter. And then I took a selfie with the entire business. And that was my way
Okay.
of, I knew they were going to post it on their social media. So I get their entire following to get to know me, and I get to post it on mine. So my entire following knows that I'm serving my community. And 25 businesses like that, that's probably better than any ad you could even think about.
Oh
And
yeah.
all the,
Yeah.
and so
Just the
when you have
relationship.
25, yeah, when you have 25 businesses sharing on their social, you dominate that community in one day. So that's like, an example of what I do. And we still do that today. Every Christmas, we repeat that.
Christmas.
Same thing for Thanksgiving. We give Thanksgiving pies. Same thing. Pick 25 businesses around. Um, we also now go to the emergency rooms because we know they see patients that might need dental treatment. So I want them
Mm,
to know, hey, I'm the dentist that they need to send it to. So
mm,
identifying not only businesses in the community, but just people that can benefit from you as that place that they can refer to. Cardiologists, for example, they have to get a medical clearance or a dental clearance for any procedure that they need to do. I want to be the dentist that comes to their mind when they need to do that. The orthopedic surgeon, same thing. And so that's where it was. I was proactively thinking, how do I dominate my city without going door to door? Well, the
yeah.
easiest answer is tackle the businesses because they've already built a relationship with people, and I'm going to play on that and go exponentially higher.
I love that, and it doesn't seem like a high expense activity. I mean, there's
No,
time
he-
involved to do that, and it takes time to build a relationship and have a conversation with somebody. But you're not spending a ton to buy a box
Yeah,
of cookies and
Christmas
take it
cookies
to
are like
them.
maybe $5 a pop, and I'm
Right.
spending $100 basically on 25 boxes of cookies. Like
It-
it's the
yeah,
best marketing you would ever do.
I love that. Yeah, get out of your comfort zone and just go talk to people. I love that strategy. That's great.
Yeah.
So let's kind of segue into the next segment of like, okay, so you're growing these group practices. Actually, before we jump into that, when did you know you wanted to open a second location? How did you find that market? Or how did you go acquire that practice? What were you looking for? All of that kind of stuff.
So my first practice, I bought 2 months after graduating dental school. The second one that same year, and we kind of lucked into the second one. We had it was in my hometown, and I was actually applying to be an associate there. And unfortunately, the doctor passed away, and so I
Oh
lucked into
man.
that practice, and it was an amazing practice, but it was like a $1 million practice. But the owner's wife never sold it, and she
Mm.
waited until every patient left. They closed the whole practice for like
Oh
6 months.
no.
And so by the time we ended up getting it, it was like no patients, no team. It was just a skeleton.
Oh.
But I was able to buy that practice because I was able to negotiate with her, and it was $1 million practice I bought for 60K.
Yeah,
And that
just
was like the
asset
best
acquisition
investment
kind of
I've
thing.
ever made in my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and now it's a $5 million practice.
Did you obviously there was probably a patient database. You probably had to just reactivate them and like, hey, this is who we are. Reach out to them, right?
Yeah. So I mean, with that practice, it was more of the dentist that passed away. You can't in Texas, you can't own a practice for a long time without a dentist, and so
Mm,
I had so much negotiation power. With her not wanting to have a dentist there until a deal was closed, every day that they stayed closed was giving me more negotiation power.
mm,
And then my offer, I'd make one once a month, and finally she took my lowest offer, and I'm glad
mm.
she did.
Yeah, that sounds like a great.
So buying that, that was
Yeah.
I looked into that one. My third and fourth was just proactively looking to in the Northeast Texas area, the area that I wanted to do my dentistry in. How do I find a practice that's not extremely successful, but how do I find one that might be needing some help because I can grow that practice, and that
Mm,
is in my sweet spot of a financial range that I'm comfortable with at that time. And so that was my thing. Find an office that's doing okay-ish and just exponentially make it bigger from my systems that I can help scale.
awesome. Well, let's kind of go into that component. Now that you work with dentists, teaching kind of your methods and what you've learned and experience that you've got, tell us more about like how you work with practices. Those that are listening that are looking for a dental coach,
Yeah.
um, tell it. Yeah, pull back the curtain. Yeah, tell us
So
more.
what I realized a long time ago, me as a dentist myself, we dentists are lazy people, and we're known to be horrible operators. What that means is we have all these amazing ideas, but we don't get to implement many of them. And so really that goes to the manager. If we have a really good manager, then we flourish. You could be an amazing dentist, but if the manager is not great, then you're as strong as your weakest link. And so I
Hmm.
realized if I want to move the ball, it's not the dentist only that I have to focus on, it's the manager. And so that's where my coaching part comes in. I started to coach not just the dentist, but also the manager. And that's what
Mm.
started really churning the wheels and actually getting progress. Because at the end of the day, what I do is coaching dentists on how to buy back their time and scale their practice. Dentists want to go do dentistry and then make good money. They don't want to
Hmm.
play a manager when they already have a manager, right? That's the manager's job to manage the office. And so my goal is, hey, how do I help you get your time back, make money, and enjoy dentistry you're doing while we actually train the managers with the manager office with you, so that way you can actually, reap the benefit of what you signed up for. And so I coach the dentist with their manager, and that's what starts to move the ball. And we do leadership to help the manager become the better leader that the practice needs it to be. Um, and dentists love that. They hate, they want to tell their manager all this stuff, and they just are afraid of that conversation. And
Mm.
sometimes having me as a third party person training that leadership component with that manager makes a huge difference. Focusing on the systems that we need to have in place to help drive what as our expectations, and then just having metrics so we know what does success actually look like. It's not a subjective thing that we can sometimes be successful and sometimes not. It's very black and white, objectively known, to where everyone in the office knows what does success look like, what does a day look like that's considered successful, and what happens based on the metrics if it's not winning. How do we go and pivot to make it to where we can win again?
Yeah, I love that. So how how involved and integrated do you get when working with a client? Do you go in person? Do you meet with the team, or is it all kind of virtual online?
It depends on kind of how much they've engaged with me, depending on a tier of
Okay.
coaching that they've chosen. I do
Okay.
go on site for some of those that choose that tier with me.
Mhm.
Some people just like a virtual thing, but my goal is if I can get the more engagement I can get, the better the result. Right? It's kind of like taking a CE course virtually is completely different than taking it on site in person. Both of them bring their own value though, but on site is always obviously better because you get to learn more and you make a longer lasting impact.
Yeah, I can imagine that that's better. How,
Yeah, and I
what?
also get to, meet the manager one on one without the dentist, and I
Yeah.
get to really focus on them and say, "Hey, the dentist is not here. Tell me what your number 1, 2, and 3 problem is, and here's what success looks like. What is stopping you from getting there?" And I get to hear them
Mm.
as the bottleneck. And if they say, "Well, my dentist sucks, right? He's not a good producer. It takes too long." Now I have good feedback to work on the dentist. And on the opposite, if the dentist like my manager is not that great, well, I get to be the third party and tell the manager that in a respectful way. Not saying the dentist says that to you, but hey, this is where I see you lacking. This is what we need to improve. That way we can help your dentist improve too.
Yeah, I think that's great. Focusing on the manager and helping them
Uh,
alleviate the bottlenecks. What would you say is kind of like the biggest challenge or bottleneck or inhibitor to growth? What in your experience when you work with clients? What are
I think
those?
the first one's always mindset. Some
Okay.
people are set in their ways, and you have to unravel that mindset and show them the value that's being brought to the table. Similar to if a patient wants to spend thousands of dollars on dentistry, on something that they can't feel in their mouth or see, and they don't have any pain, you have to sell them the value, right? You have to show them what that value is, and that's when they buy. Same thing, to buy your team into what you're trying to preach, to the mission of what you're trying to achieve, you have to be able to show them the value, that peek behind the curtain of, hey, this is what we're aiming for, this is why it's important, and I can help you actually get there. And then when the
Mm,
team's aligned in that vision, then you move rocks and boulders at that.
yeah, love that. Do you there's many facets, areas of the business, right? There's marketing, there's finance, there's insurance, there's clinical, there's the team, um, all of that. What do you go into all of those areas of the business, or are you mostly focused on kind of working directly with the office manager and then helping them
Well,
kind of yeah.
a lot of consultants, the good thing in our profession is we have a lot of them. The
Mhm.
good thing on what I do is we don't have a lot of consultants that are actually dentists, and we
Mm,
barely have any that are actually practicing. So I like to tell people I get to walk the walk. I'm not only a practicing dentist that operates a multi practice or multi group locations, but I'm also walking the walk because I get to know exactly what you're going through because I've already been through it or I'm already going through it myself. And so
mm,
when I'm working with a dentist, and there's insurance problems, I know a good amount of what that looks like to be able to say, "Hey, dude, this is a solution here."
mm,
Or if I
mhm,
don't, I'm well connected to people to say, I don't have the exact solution, but I can connect you to the person that does. And so
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's what I enjoy, and a lot of my clients enjoy because I'm the practicing dentist, and I've personally experienced every problem that any dentist has,
Mm,
and that's what people love being able to connect to. Because if they're having a marketing problem, I have marketing tips that I've done that have made me successful. If they're having
mm.
a they can't produce problem, I can talk about what we've done that's been extremely successful. So they get truly tried and tested things that we've done to help grow our company to scale.
That's great. What would you say? I know there's different consultants out there, especially startup consultants, and marketing consultants. There, every market's different, and the doctor to patient ratio can sometimes play into how competitive a market is and how successful a practice can be. Like super saturated markets where it's hard. Um, in your experience, how do you help a practice that's in one of those situations where the market is really saturated? There's multiple dentists in the same medical building. There's
Yeah.
the doctor to patient ratio is lower. Um, I'm trying to figure out as I work with more and more practices. Now we've helped over 260 practices to grow, but um, some of them are in markets that are just really tough. So
Mhm.
how do you address that?
So the way I help a practice that has that complaint of we're oversaturated,
Mm,
you know, there's dentists across the street, they're in our same building. I first start asking them, what can you do that makes you different? Right?
mm,
The good thing in dentistry is most dentists are, like I said, we're lazy people. Most dentists don't go and do community marketing. Most
mm,
dentists don't go to every single ER within a 5-mile radius and give them a referral card to say, we want to be the office you need to come to. Right. Most people just don't do any of that. They don't do the Christmas holiday thing we talked about. And so you could easily dominate those areas by just determining what does the average dentist do and how do I not be
mm,
average? Right? And
mm,
that mindset of how do I get so ridiculously famous in my community that people can't help but talk about me or help but know me? And
mm,
I think we have the advantage that most dentists are average, right? You just got to be above average, and that's not hard at all. You don't have to be this executive elite person. You just have to be above average. And with the average dentist being average, it's not hard to outmarket someone.
yeah. Yeah, I love that. Um, so many dentists, I talk with them and they're complaining about growth and they're like, I can't grow. And then you find out they're spending, a few $100s a month on marketing, paying for somebody to just host their website. They've got some templated brochure website that's, they're not running ads. They're not doing any kind of online engagement, let alone community,
Yeah.
engagement in person. It's like you hit it on the head. It's like, what do you expect? Right. It's like, if
Yeah.
you're not growing, then
You're
do
done.
what others aren't doing. Yeah. And you're
Yeah.
dying. Yeah.
And like
So
you said,
that's
right?
that's
Yeah,
typical.
yeah. Well, I was gonna say, like you said, the average dentist only does a template website, maybe puts $100 on social media, and they're like, "Where's my millionaire? Where's my millions that I'm
Right.
making here?" And that's the
Yeah.
average dentist, right? You got to spend more to make it.
Yeah. And there's probably, it's hard. Like you said, we don't learn business in dental school, let alone anywhere, unless you hire somebody to help walk you through it.
Mhm.
And so you're going to learn through school of hard knocks that, well, if you're not doing what's required to move the needle's not going to move. So, yeah, if you're, yeah, I think it's around limiting beliefs, right? It's like, well, I've got all this expense, I've got this overhead, I've got this team, I've got supplies, I've got
It's a
XYZ
mindset thing.
thing. So then I have this scarcity mindset around, well, I only have so much for marketing, so I'm only going to pay $200 a month for a website, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, and that's where, it's like you've heard the phrase, you got to spend money to make money. And I like
yep,
to put I like to put expenses in the terms of dentistry. If you're going to spend $100, that's a filling. You do like 10 of them a day, right? You shouldn't complain about
right,
that. Spend a crown worth, right? Which is $1,000 or so,
right.
or more now. So when you put it in that terms, it's like, well, you know what? I actually do multiple crowns in the month. Spending a crown on
Yeah,
market is not hard at all now. And when you're able to put into
yeah,
digestible terms, it kind of sounds crazy. Like, wow, I've only spent the cost of a filling, but that marketing effort
yeah.
is gonna be so many fillings. Why am I hesitant to spend more?
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're like on average, if you're spending 150, $200 to acquire a patient with your marketing,
Yeah.
okay, so that's a couple fillings to get one patient in the door. And we know from data and from the ADA and from marketing studies that on average, the average patient over the lifetime of that patient
Yeah.
is anywhere from 10 to 15 to $20,000 of production, let alone, the referrals that they bring in and their family, et cetera. So,
Yeah, and even marketing
definitely
data shows that you have to see an ad probably 6 to 7 times before you actually make a decision. So it's not like that one
right.
100 you put on Facebook is gonna instantly give you a
Yeah.
patient.
Yeah. I want to speak more on this. I want to get on more stages and into study clubs to talk about what is effective marketing. What do the costs look like when you're working with a marketing company? What actually should they be doing and the questions you should be asking to know if your marketing company and your marketing dollars are working for your practice. So, but that's a conversation for a whole nother day. And we're almost out of time. This has been an awesome conversation. We probably should do another one of these and go deeper,
Yeah,
but
I'm always down for it.
um, yeah, I'm thinking about doing one on group practices and going into the nuances of owning multiple locations,
Mm.
um, and
And
doing a
you know
series
what?
on that. So,
With group practices, Brett, so one of the things I do, I not only do I coach single practice owners, but I also help emerging DSOs or DSOs. And
mm,
the problem with group practices is the leadership or the growth happens so fast that the middle managers, these regional managers, they don't get to grow to that level at that same speed. So
mm,
the organization grows quick, the middle managers, they don't get to match that, and then they start
hmm
struggling. And so that's where I help
mm,
coach them on how do we grow with the practice or with the organization. And same concept, right? When I single
mm.
practices, I'm working with their managers. For DSOs or emerging DSOs or group practices, it's working with the regional managers and developing them into true operators so that way they can help the vision behind the organization.
I love that. There's so much nuance behind every stage of the game, especially if you're
Definitely.
growing a group practice. So I'm sure that is super valuable. I had early on in the show, I had Emmett Scott from the DEO
Yeah.
on. I don't know if you're familiar with the
Yeah.
DEO, the Dental
I'm
Entrepreneur
familiar with
Organization.
them.
Yeah. So great episode. We talked about that. Like, when do you know you're ready? And where does it make sense to actually invest in the practice you're managing before maybe we add more ops on before we decide to open another location. But
Yeah.
there's a lot that goes into group management and all of that. So yes, we should definitely do another episode, and I could pick your brain more on that. But
Yeah.
this has been phenomenal. I really enjoyed our time. Look, the time has flown by. Real quick, kind of in the format of the show, I always close with this question: like, what's that one golden nugget, that piece of advice that could have a ripple effect, that epiphany for our listeners? What would you share?
So one golden nugget that I would share would be there's a phrase I like to use: if you're not measuring it, you're not managing it. And
Mm,
kind of familiar to what you do, Brett, is there's so much data that is in existence of what we do, but we as dentists or owners, we just try to go ad lib and we just try to roll with the flow. But that's not how you scale a company. It's data driven decisions. And that's same as marketing. How do you make the next marketing move? Well, you look at the data and see what is it promoting. How do you light a fire on that and take it more? So for dentists that are listening to this episode, are you even tracking any data? Are you tracking your
mm,
case acceptance as a doctor, your treatment acceptance, your
mm.
hygiene reappointment rate? Are you tracking the actual data that moves the ball to make your company successful? Because if you're not, then that's where I'd start, because then you can objectively identify what you actually need to focus on to actually make your company more successful. Now it's not guesswork at that point.
Yeah, I love that. We're deep in the analytics when we work with practices. A big one that I'll share with you
Yeah.
is most practices don't know the booking rate of their front desk team,
Uh,
and when a patient's not scheduling, why they're not scheduling. So
yeah.
we have a call cat software we built that has some AI on it. So it really exposes that and helps you see and your team see, okay, what are these different areas that we can improve to that booking rate? All right. So this has been such a great conversation, Rehan. Real quick, anybody that's interested in working with you, tell us how they can connect with you. I know you were talking about a WhatsApp group that you've got. Tell us more about how they can connect with you and get more info.
Yeah. So anyone that wants to reach out, follow me on Instagram at Practice Success Academy. I'm very responsive on there, so you can shoot me a DM and we can connect from there. I also run a WhatsApp group for free that is focused on non-clinical stuff. There's over 470 owner dentists in the WhatsApp group. This is purely for owner dentists. If you're an associate, you can't join the group, but if you're about to buy, then I can get you in. And we only talk business, so how to make money, how to develop your team, marketing, vendors that would be good for certain things, how to train and systematize your operations, and just everything non-clinical that drives and promotes a successful dental office.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, this is phenomenal. I've really enjoyed this. It's probably one of my favorite to record with you, Rehan. Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your expertise.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Brett, for having me.
All right, guys. Until next time on the Marketing 32 Show, have a great rest of your day, great rest of your week, and take care.